Ladies and gentlemen, what is up and what is going on? And welcome back to the installment of the Rufus Rundown podcast. It is your boy Rufus. This should be the last week of one a week upload, so the Friday upload. So it'll be back to Tuesday, Friday. I finally got a schedule set in front of me, so we should be good for Tuesday, Friday uploads. So quite a bit to talk about, considering that it is one a week and it hasn't been since the other Friday where I made some awful Super Bowl predictions. But of course, without further ado, today's episode and every episode from here on out and for the foreseeable future is brought to you by Vin's Organics. Vin's Organics, you're probably overpaying for your CBD product. Vin's Organic is a natural herbal paint solve that really works way better than CBD. It's way cheaper than CBD. Much more natural than CBD as well. I've been using it on my lower back as of late, because I decided to swing a golf club in 20-degree weather, and my body did not respond well to that after lifting heavy weights for the past 2 months without swinging a golf club. Highly don't recommend. It doesn't matter what age you are. Just not a good idea. So I've been using it to try and not be as stiff as a board throughout the majority of the day. And it's been working. It's been working just fine. Without it, I don't know what I'd be doing. Also, worth of notes, Ethan Souza Design. He's picking up sponsors, but of course, still looking for more for this upcoming Seekonk Speedway Raceway season. Of course, you see right there on the screen, Ethan Souza Design. Let's get creative for any of your graphic design needs as well. I put on one of my friends to Ethan Souza as well. So I think he did some consultation for me. But of course, any of your graphic design needs, that is the guy to go to. You can see a lot of his work. He's doing a lot of work for Playstown in Miami right now as well, too. So you can see some of that work. Really anything from athletics to personal design to just really anything. He's the guy to go to for that. So now let's get into it. Super Bowl 55. Tom Brady doing his thing. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers doing their thing. And the Chiefs doing literally everything humanly possible to lose the Super Bowl. And of course the referees helping out the Buccaneers plenty in that one. Just the first half alone, 95 yards of penalty yards. But we'll get to that. We're not going to jump right into that because I don't want to make it seem like the referees lost that game for the Kansas City and won it for Tampa, because that is not the case. Here's the thing that I will touch upon before we dig deep into it. That I've always said it, and as a Saints fan, many should know that I've seen some bad calls in my lifetime. And that alone, referees cannot lose you any sporting event ever. They can have bigger effects than in normal games, yes. But if you leave it in the hands of the referees, your execution was not good enough. And the Chiefs flat out got outplayed. But you cannot tell me that the referees did not impact that game. And here's the thing. I don't want to have to talk about referees. I don't have to talk about it at such a it was supposed to be such a special game. It was supposed to be a game we talked about for a very long time, and it turned out not to be. And I'm not putting all that on the referees, but the fact that we have to address that in hindsight took away from the enjoyment for me. I wasn't upset with the fact that Tom Brady won the Super Bowl. Good for him. I was upset with the fact that I couldn't. That game was not even worth noting ever. Worst Super Bowl I've watched in forever. So we'll carry it into this. Worst Super Bowl I've seen. And I've watched those Broncos, Seahawks, Broncos, Panthers. I've watched those Super Bowls, and that was still by far the worst one I'd ever watched, hands down. The Rams, Patriots, just not good, not good. That is the worst Super Bowl I've ever watched. In comparison, and I don't know if it's just in general the worst I've ever watched, but I can tell you right now that with what the expectation was going in, as opposed to what happened, it is the worst that I have ever watched, hands down. I mean, of course, your expectation was this game that was supposed to be talked about for forever, or at least in my mind. It was supposed to be that, the coming of the new guard versus the old guard, and regardless, you were going to get something out of it. You're going to get Mahomes trying to take the throne from Brady, or you're going to get Brady winning the 7th, which he did, but it's in the way that it happened. It should have been close. Someone should have been challenging. There should have been, last second scores and people coming back and such like that, and just none of it happened. None of it came to fruition. It was just a blah, boring, just terribly executed football game on one end. On every end. Really, everybody just executed poorly except for the Buccaneers. Todd Bowles, Bruce Arians, Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Antonio Brown, Leonard Fournette, everybody just executing very well. So, of course, he said, Brady getting his 7th ring. Couple of things to note. There was a streaker that put $50,000 on himself at plus 700 odds to make was it 375,000? I don't know. He must have bet that with Vegas. And even then, like, who's taking that bet? Who puts $50,000 on a prop bet? Somebody with insider info, probably. Why in God's name? Even if it is Vegas, even if it's Bovada, why are you taking that bet? So that doesn't raise red flags. This guy's betting $50,000 on a streaker. Doesn't raise a red flag in anybody's head? Because if that wasn't Vegas and that was just some other bookie, dude's gonna be found in a dumpster soon enough. They will find that man in pieces in a garbage bag in a dumpster if that wasn't one of the legitimate sports betting agencies. And even then, there's still the opportunity. That is just, it's just insider. It was really just insider trading, is what it was. And it's just everybody's celebrating. Like, yeah, you beat the system. Try that with your local bookie. Try that with anybody outside of Vegas. Try it. I dare you. Because we will not hear from you forever again if you try to pull anything like that. And even then, I'm sure that these bigger agencies will step in to now know that it just doesn't seem like a genuine possibility to put $50,000 on a prop bet. Not without other ones. I mean, if you went to multiple agencies, that's one thing. But $50K on one, I don't know. It should have been raised some red flags anyway. So that's not really just beating the system. That is just getting damned lucky. So I think it's just banned from all sporting events for a year. Doesn't look like a bad play on paper, but doesn't look like a bad play until all of a sudden one night you're eating your food and then you're not, and then no one ever hears of you again and you disappear because you tried to beat the betting system. And the gambling system is not a forgiving one. Just know that. Just know that. It's for future reference for everybody. So back to the Super Bowl. Brady gets a 7th ring, which is more than any NFL franchise ever. This is a single player more than any franchise. Of course, now the franchises do win the Super Bowl. It is not just Tom Brady in the field. It is not just Tom Brady doing everything. Of course, Tom Brady has no say in how the team is put together unless you consider Gronk, AB, and anybody else that wants to come play with Tom. Very similar to an athlete in LeBron James, but we'll skip over that. For now, that'll be a take for future episodes because people love that one so much. But again, takes home the MVP, 21 of 29, passing, 201 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he has turned not one, but now two irrelevant franchises into legitimately relevant franchises. The Patriots were one of the most irrelevant franchises in professional sports, especially professional football, and he turned them into the greatest dynasty anyone has ever seen ever in terms of team sports. Hands down, no argument. Bulls were great, yes, but Brady and the Patriots, hands down, greatest dynasty anyone's ever seen and ever will see, unless he plays till like 60 here in Tampa, which I would rule out. But again, now this franchise, which was totally irrelevant, one of the most historically unsuccessful, I think lowest winning percentage, which of course it's not like that was a bad team. They were 7-9 the year before. Jameis put up the same numbers as minus the interceptions from Tom. Like, they're not bad. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cameron Brate, pretty much a starting tight end on any team in the NFL, outside of like George Kittle and of course Gronk coming in. So like, still a very good tight end. They still have Ronald Jones there. They still have a productive offensive line. They still have a good team. Shaq Barrett was there. Like, they still had a very talented team. So it's not like he took this 1-15 team to the Super Bowl the next year. But there is something to be said like about Tom Brady and what he can do for winning culture and how a lot of guys can believe in him and what he brings to the table. I absolutely don't disagree with that. But again, it was just, and of course it's not all him, but a lot of that attitude and a lot of that winning ability just at the most important position on the field does have a lot to do with their success. Now, of course, worth note, the Chiefs again beat themselves. Like I said, they don't do that. They did, and they found a way to just absolutely. I mean, they've played bad before and put themselves in holes, but if you were to rate every single player on that field, on that team, on that Chiefs team, they get an F. Except for Patrick Mahomes, he gets a C. That's being generous, I think. New England irrelevant. Tampa was irrelevant. And only success that Tampa had in the Super Bowl was because John Gruden took Tony Dungy's team to the Super Bowl and then happened to just teach Rich Gannon every single thing he knows about the quarterback position and literally had Rich Gannon's head in a playbook because they were still running the same stuff that good old Chuck Gruden had set up for Gannon the year before. That's the only reason they had any relevance before this. And Tom Brady comes in and totally changes the attitude there. Of course, it was already a pretty built-up offense to begin with, and then he brings Gronk, Antonio Brown, who, by the way, is still a fantastic receiver. Just because he's crazy doesn't mean he's any less talented. I don't know. I think Brady really does have that winning mentality, but is he the be-all, end-all of this? No, but is he still damn impressive? And I still think the greatest team sport athletes ever play, not the greatest athlete ever, the greatest team sport athletes ever play, yes. I think he beats out Jordan, and I think he beats out LeBron as of now. But 7 of 10 championships, it's insane. It's really insane. I think no matter what sport you watch, if you're a Brady hater or not, Pats hater, Buccaneers, whatever it may be, you have to understand that you were blessed to be able to say that you watched this man play. When your grandkids are asking about, I say that, and my dad had mentioned to me, hey, in 20 years, like when I do the documentary, it's gonna be pretty cool. There's no guarantees he's done playing in 20 years, because here's the thing with Tom Brady. He's going to play till 45 because people said he couldn't play till 40, so he played till 40. Now he's playing till 45 because people said he couldn't play till he would be 45. And when he hits 45, they're going to say, Tom, you can't play till you're 50. And at that rate, he still might want to prove people wrong. This man is just built different up top. He's wired differently than anybody could ever imagine, and it's why he's 7 for 10 in Super Bowls. And honestly, he's probably poised to win one more before he goes as well. I think before he retires, he will win an 8th. But if you're a fan of any team sport or any athletics in general, you have to feel blessed to say you've watched Tom Brady play quarterback. And of course, now they've had the parade now too. So of course, like this great role model that Tom Brady is, of course you're going to have the get off my grass crowd saying, Tom, you can't go out there looking hammered. My kid looks up to you as a role model and just waving the cane, get off my grass. Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem with that. Here's my gripe with that. I think it's absolutely awesome that he looked the way he did, that he showed that there's a human side. And then he also showed that there's so many people in professional sports that only care about the money, only care about the paycheck. They don't care about the sport and the game and the fundamental of it, that winning matters. Tom Brady just won his 7th Super Bowl. 7! And it still hasn't gotten old for him. He's still celebrating it like it's his first. And that is why he's going to be the most successful team sport athlete ever. And for the parents that are saying, oh, that looks like a bad look, whatever, all of it, this cancel culture, this, that. If you can't be enough of a role model to your kid as to be more of one than a professional athlete in their life, then it's time to look in the mirror. If a professional athlete has more to do and has more control over your kid than you do, that says more about you than it says about anybody else. So maybe you should step up and be a better role model yourself, a better parent yourself, before you criticize Tom Brady for having a little too much to drink in the Tampa Sun, which, by the way, makes sense. He doesn't drink the entire season, so regardless of who you are, it's going to hit different. And then it's not in the New England cold. It's in the Tampa Bay warm on the water in the sun. Of course it's going to hit him a little different. All I want to see is a video of Gronk calling him a lightweight. That would make my day. If Mr. Frat Boy Rob Gronkowski was calling Tom Brady a lightweight. It'd be great. He said, nothing to see here, just a little avocado tequila. That's all it was. That's all it was, Tommy. But man, I thought the video was awesome. I thought the video was absolutely awesome. It just shows the human side of Tom. You know, he looks like he's this robot. He's just supposed to win all the time, and then he's celebrating the 7th just like he would be celebrating his 1st. You know, it says a lot about him and how much he commits to it. So, like I said, in 20 years he won't be playing. I'm saying that, of course, if he's done playing. I'm being facetious, but that documentary, that Last Dance type documentary, is going to be absolutely incredible to see how much this man really does sacrifice for the game of football and how much he sacrificed to be the greatest of all time. You know, he was never the most gifted athlete, and at every step of the way just had to outwork every single person at every moment, and he's just been so stuck in that. He's never got tired of that, and he just built off of that differently, and it just shows. It just shows with his mentality, where he has like this magic touch, where he just has this, now he has this infectious energy around him that just produces this consistently. It's amazing in my opinion, and you have to say that you You are blessed. You have to be thankful to be able to be in the same time period to be able to say that you watched him play with your very own eyes. Whether be in person or on TV, where you live in the same time period, because he's the most impressive team sport athlete I have ever seen, and I think anybody ever will see. Just the work ethic, IQ, you name it. We'll put the Rockies movies, the MJ, LeBron, you know, any of it. I think he puts it all to shame. I mean, LeBron still has a story to write himself, but I think he puts it all to shame. Now, that one, like I said, do I think he really played out of his mind? I mean, I think he played well enough in consideration of the team. And again, throughout the whole playoffs, that's been the story. He went to a team where he doesn't have to do what he did with the Patriots, throw 500-plus yards Super Bowl and still lose. He doesn't have to do that. You know, he just went out there and he did what he had to do. He just didn't make the mistakes, and he kept his team in the game no matter what. So I think it's damn impressive what he was able to do with the Buccaneers. He did his job. Everybody, and now for the Chiefs in that matter, Mahomes did everything he possibly could. He get record high 29 QB pressures on Patrick Mahomes, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers put on Patrick Mahomes. All together with him trying to escape the rush, he ran over 500 yards avoiding pressure. 500 yards to avoid pressure. Almost 30 quarterback pressures. And he still, some of the throws he almost made. My opinion of Patrick Mahomes before does not change after that football game. Everybody else in that Chiefs team, yes. Travis Kelce making drops, Tyreek Hill being double teamed, the offensive line missing Eric Fisher late. All of that changes. Andy Reid, yes, it changes. Andy Reid had a shot at some different legacy there as well, too. All of the above. But not Patrick Mahomes. Now, will Patrick Mahomes ever be considered into that GOAT conversation? No, not unless he wins 10 Super Bowls. That was his chance to have that one thing to say that I beat your GOAT. Tom Brady is the GOAT. I beat him. He had the opportunity to do that. He had, that to put on the resume, and he lost it. He absolutely did lose it. So, my opinion does not shift of Mahomes, but also in terms of being able to get a GOAT conversation, he was able to put his foot in the door there if he wanted. It was just to nudge into the conversation. He still has a lot. He would have had a lot of work to go, and obviously still has a lot ahead of him now to get into that conversation. And it might be good for him, in terms of getting back to it, but there's not much that he could have done about it. He did everything he humanly possibly could to do something about it. And what do you want? What do you want from the guy? I mean, he had to run over 500 yards just to get passes off. It really incredible. But again, he will not be seen as the GOAT in my eyes for a very long time. There was a chance there for him really to break into that conversation with beating Tom, but never, not now. Not after that. It's going to take a hell of a lot for him to break into that conversation now. Again, I said I was going to touch on the referees, and I will. Just the penalty yardage difference is pretty obvious. Over 100 against the Chiefs, and then less than 20 against the Buccaneers. And it was ticky-tack. I thought a lot of it was ticky-tack one way. Now, Tony Romo mentioned on the broadcast that they'd even mentioned that the Chiefs like to hold in the secondary a little bit, but what team does not? In the whole NFL is rigged crowd, they have a little bit of an argument here. Does it look sleazy? Does it look bad? If you hate Brady, especially if you hate the Patriots because Patriots fans decided to jump on the bandwagon, that's not how sports fandom works. You can wish your player well, but to actively root for a team that is not yours is not how it works. Unless you have money on them. Unless you bet on Tom. Which don't bet against Tom ever. That's different. But I can guarantee you 99.9% of people that I am talking about and referencing did not have money on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because they watch one football game a year and it's normally the Super Bowl. And like they act as the biggest Patriots fans in the world. But they've been spoiled their whole lives. So they decided to jump on this Tom Brady bandwagon. Like, that's still my quarterback. That's still him. Still my guy. I can root for them. And I can feel good about myself because I watch one football game a year. And my team wins it because Tommy Brady. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. And I don't care who's offended by that. It's not how it works. Tom Brady doesn't care about you. So if it takes one game a year in the Super Bowl for him to win, for you to feel good about yourself, congratulations. He's not going to be around forever. You have to find happiness somewhere else in February. I don't know. Try Valentine's Day. But again, the referees did take KC out of any rhythm they tried to get into. They took KC out of the rhythm. And like I mentioned before, I should not have to address referees. Should not. They're not there to be important. They're not there to factor into the game. They're there to referee the game, and that is it. Make the calls that have to be made. Normally, let the boys play, and they let the Buccaneers defense play, holding Reek, holding Travis Kelce, not running and stumbling and bumbling into Travis Kelce before he made plays. Shots to Mahomes in the head by Ndamukong Suh. Big shocker there. But then when it came the other way, it was wicked ticky-tack on KC because they got the memo and they had to feel important and feel like they were, we're important. We're making this game good for one side. If you're going to call it tight both ways. You can't call ticky-tack one way and not ticky-tack the other. It's not how, it's not. You can't have that kind of impact in the game as a referee, especially in that game. That game does not need any help with implications. It has everything on the line. Let the boys play. Let them play. Or if you're going to call it tight both ways. But I thought the refereeing was awful, and it took KC out of any groove they could possibly be, defensively and offensively. Like the interception that the hold was called, the ball was already batted in the air in the hold, and it wasn't even a legitimate hold. It was Mike Evans with a hand on him when he was coming out of his break, and it was very brief. There was not even really jersey pulled, and not to mention the fact that the ball was in the air, so it doesn't matter. All things go. And like I said, I could continue to get deeper and deeper into it, but the refs trying to feel important and trying to be important and trying to be MVP, and it was mentioned at halftime by Nate Burleson and Boomer Esiason as well. So I'm not alone in this when I was saying this, and I'm not salty because I didn't care who won that game. I'm a Mahomes fan, yes. Do I respect the hell out of Brady? Yes. Did I really want to see Brady win because a bunch of Patriots fans that want to feel special and are probably just down and depressed, but want to say that Tom Brady won a Super Bowl, so I feel like my team won again? Did that annoy me? Yes. All season long it did. And then again, on top of that, local sports media just absolutely crushing Bill Belichick, who's the greatest coach of all time, because Tom Brady went elsewhere. But you wouldn't have been able to put those weapons around him that Tampa Bay had anyways. He knew exactly what he was doing with that. Anyways, the referees just not up to par. It really killed that enjoyment of that game for me. They really, as hard as tooth and nail down there, Casey tried to break back into that game, and when they did, still yet there was another team to beat, and that was the referees, and they were not having it. So, again, congratulations. Feel blessed to be living in the same era as Tom Brady. And for all those fake sports fans that just want to just jump from team to team because they like a guy, you're a Patriots fan. You're not a Brady fan. You can wish Brady well, but you're a Patriots fan. So to actively throw on a Bucks jersey and Brady jersey and throw on that Bucks hat and, excuse me, dick ride for Tom Brady. He does not care about you that much. And if it takes you that much for a Super Bowl win to talk about, to tweet about and talk about on social media, to feel good about yourself, it's time to find a hobby outside of sports. I talk about sports, but I'm unbiased by opinions. I watch all of them. And it doesn't take one thing or the other. My team wins, I feel good. But I don't have to jump to another team or another quarterback or just follow suit with whoever's winning to make myself feel better. I know what I'm doing here. You don't. Find a hobby. But again, Bucks defense, take a bow. Todd Bowles had a fantastic game plan. The front four pressure was insane. He let the linebackers just roam. Devin White is an absolute stud. There's no argument to be made there. Devin White is incredible. I remember even walking onto him. My dad's like, who's Levante David? But you don't know who Levante David is? Levante David had a fantastic game as well. The linebackers were able to cover Kelce very well. Were able to wreck things in the middle. And were able, because you're only rushing 4, being able to get to Mahomes is a lot easier when he scrambles out of the pocket. But then again, they were able to over-under in the secondary with a lot of those guys. And just made the right adjustments, man. Just the front four dominated. Devin White, wow. Todd Bowles you're probably gonna have a shot at being another NFL head coach very soon, even after the success he had with the Jets. Then the struggles. That was a damn impressive performance. Still has another year in front of him where he has to really prove himself, but it's a damn good start with that there. But you take away Kelce and Hill, and you win all the one-on-one battles with a lot of the secondary battles against the lower threats, then it speaks for itself. The scoreline speaks for itself. So I think it's damn impressive on the part of Todd Bowles, damn impressive on the part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And like I said, congratulations to Todd Bowles, to Bruce Arians, as much as I gave a lot of crap to Bruce Arians for him saying let Brady work and all this and that. Hey, he has a Super Bowl to his name now as a head coach. That's 3 in his career now. You only have 5 to catch to get at the Belichick where you can actually stay, stuff like that. So congratulations. And again, feel blessed to live in the same era as Tom Brady. I think you should be able to enjoy watching Gronk and all those guys down there celebrating because, they had to go through a lot of the COVID testing, losing players throughout the week, the pure joy from those players and winning a Super Bowl, and also being able to show them beating back a virus at the same time. I think has to be commendable, and I think anybody should be able to at least tip their cap to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year because any team that can win throughout this pandemic and unforeseen circumstances should feel proud. And I think we should feel proud as human beings to be able to say that they made it through that season, and that's it. You're able to enjoy it. They give you a different kind of enjoyment on Sunday if you're watching it consistently, and they had to go through a lot more this season to put that product in the field, and we should be thankful for it. Of course, now it is worth touching upon that now that I've ranted about sports fans in general, we have to take a look at Liverpool losing 4-1 to Man City. 3 straight losses for Liverpool. 2 huge errors from the best goalkeeper in the world. He's been big for us down the road, so we'll give him that. But just tired, man. Just tired. It's not a championship team, and I've been saying that. You don't lose the Brighton. You don't lose the Burnley. You don't lose these small clubs and then expect it to show up differently for a big game, especially when your head coach is making excuses for you. Listen, if you don't think there's guys out there that are physically ready to get it to go, then they're not. They don't play them. Play somebody who is. But to continue to make excuses, you're not going to be able to have a championship mentality when all you're doing is making excuses for your players day in, day out for why they're tired or why they're not performing. And that's exactly what Klopp's been doing. They're burnt. I think the title hangover is part of it, and I also think COVID's a part of it. And I think that the fact that these last seasons they've been running so deep into all of them, playing so hard at all times, they just can't keep up. And once again, it is a battle for top 4 before it is a battle for a title. Man City thoroughly beating us down, as they should, have played well. It has nothing to do with the difference of rest, the 2 weeks of rest. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with Klopp making excuses, us just being mentally weaker right now, not really pushing for a title as hard as we can because we won the first one in 30 years. And just a lot of players just not looking like they want to be out there. And of course, the fact that we're playing midfielders in defense. But then again, that comes down to not being prepared and not signing defenders, whether it be on FSG or whether it be on Klopp. It's unacceptable from top to bottom. There's only a handful of players that I've seen, Salah, Mane, Henderson, and Curtis Jones, the only guys that look to care. Trent Alexander-Arnold showed his most fire and passion in weeks, and that was from trying to kick the ball away from Ederson. He was just being pretty much an ass. And that was the most energy I've seen. Robertson said they weren't challenging for the title, and he's right. But also, he looks burnt too. But Tsimikas has been hurt, and he hasn't been time to get any reps off. But then again, Genie has just been, looks like he's just been withered down throughout contracts talks, and you wonder why he hasn't signed that extension. Thiago just has not been able to get comfortable in any role. Fabinho, man, he's lost any consistency. And I know he's playing center back as opposed to his CDM spot, but even CDM, he's been struggling for form in recent times. And I think that this summer might be time to let Fabinho go. I think the links to Declan Rice to replace Fabinho, the links to Declan Rice aren't to replace Fabinho, but I think the links to Declan Rice could surely mean that we see Fabinho exit for Declan Rice to come in. And you know what? I'm welcoming to it. Bring in a new face. English chemistry. Bring it in. Bring him in. Because I think Firmino's time at the club is spent as well. And don't get me wrong, I am totally appreciative of everything that they've done for us. I am very grateful for it. But you have to see it for what it's worth in terms of especially Roberto Firmino, that I think he's finished at this club. Under the circumstances that we're bringing in an Erling Haaland, a Kylian Mbappe. And that might be too much to ask, but of course there's going to be, I think a player like Alexander Isak could also fit in well for us too under Klopp. So, there's going to be some things worth a note for forwards in the summer. Diogo Jota could be able to slide into that role as well on one of those wings. So, even Shaqiri, Origi, and Joe Gomez, dependent on what K-back looks like at the back. There was on K-back, even Ben Davies too. Who knows? He could flash into some sort of starlet for no reason other than the fact that he just sits as a cheap Klopp signing, which seems to pan out every time. Even Gomez could be looked to be sold because of how injury prone he is, So especially anybody playing alongside Virgil van Dijk should be able to have success. So if he can stay healthy, that's going to be the big thing. Because Matip hasn't been able to, and of course Joe Gomez hasn't been able to either. But I I can't stand these excuses from Klopp. And I love Klopp as a manager, and I've been pro Klopp for a very long time. But I think these excuses that he continues to make in the press just take these players out of a championship mentality. They're not. There's just no motivation there. There's just like there's something to fall back on when they're playing, and it just looks like some players are spent and they just don't want to be out there, and they're just not willing to be out there and be able to sell out anymore. You know what? They won the title for the first time in 30 years last year. It's a little all right, but people have higher expectations, especially from how hard that they have mentally pushed in these prior years. So I just don't like the excuse. I really don't like the excuses from Klopp, and I think it is having a negative effect on the mentality of this team. Now, like I mentioned before, City are just huge favorites to pull away with the league, as they should be. And honestly, I'm actively rooting for Man United. I've said this before. I was actively rooting for the Yankees to win the World Series last year. The Astros as well. But just baseball is better when the Red Sox and Yankees are good. World football is better when Man United and Liverpool are good. And not only that, can you imagine Liverpool winning their first title in 30 years and then Man United jumping right back in and winning a title? It would hold them directly accountable to this dumpster fire of a season that we have to finish top 4 and have to challenge for it again next year. It totally opens up the checkbooks. It totally opens up a different mentality from ownership, from management. It opens up a different thing when your rivals win a title like that. Man United would put the pressure right back on Liverpool to go after a title and sell all out for it. And that's what I'm rooting for. I'm not rooting for Man United specifically. I'm rooting for the fact that it would totally challenge Liverpool to really go at it for the next season and really just go heads ahead in these title races for years to come. Whether I think Man United can maintain that or not is a totally different thing. But I am rooting for Man United because I have a friend that's a Man United fan. I think that they deserve it. I've been pro Ole. There was a time there where I said it might be time for Ole to move on. It might be, but I've been pro Ole a lot longer than a lot of Man United fans have been too, and it's showing that. Like, do I still think they're going to win the title? No, I don't. But I hope they do. I hope they do, and I hope they do for the reason because I'm pro Ole, and I think the players like to play for him, and I was right about that. And on top of that, I do want them to win too because I think it'll push Liverpool even harder than it has before in these recent years to get right back in a title race. Now, the next thing worth a note in world football is, of course, Chelsea sacking club legend and previous manager Frank Lampard. And somehow Mikel Arteta is still employed by Arsenal Football Club. And Frank Lampard, after spending hundreds of millions of dollars in this most recent transfer window, is now fired. They allowed Lampard to show that he can manage at this level by not giving him any money because, well, they were banned from doing so. And he had success with that. And then they just don't allow him to work out of a pickle he got himself into with the money that he spent over the summer. I thought the leash was far too short, especially for a guy that was a club legend. And you bring in a guy in Tuchel who I just don't have that much confidence in, not that much more than Lampard, who I think has a higher ceiling than Tuchel because you know what you're getting from him. And of course he has quick success, but most coaches at that high level have immediate success at those big clubs with so many options at their disposal. And it's just that shock and awe effect. Players want to play better because they want to maintain their jobs. That's going to be the big thing. And I don't get it. Why let Frank spend that money and be successful without spending it and then not allow him to work out of the fact that he did spend the money? If he was able to work his way into some success without spending, what is the difference? Why wouldn't he be able to work himself out of some trouble when he has spent? Because you weren't going to challenge, no matter what Tuchel does, he's not challenging for the title this year, I don't think. So why not let Frank work through the kinks? You weren't in danger of being relegated. Like, I don't know, Arsenal were earlier in the season. I don't understand why the leash so long for Arteta and it's so short for Lampard, but then again, it's just different ownership groups. So, but if there's anybody who's been fired before Lampard, it was Mikel Arteta, who ain't even a club legend at Arsenal. And to hire Tuchel, Jesse Marsch, or Julian Nagelsmann, or Ralph Hasenhuttl would probably be my picks before Tuchel. Absolutely. I would have written a blank check to Nagelsmann. I would have looked into Jesse Marsch, those guys that run those systems and have worked with guys like Timo Werner and German players like Kai Havertz and have really brought together a lot of good systems over in the Bundesliga, which is probably the second best league in the world right now to the English Premier League. Or even Poch before, if you were thinking about moving Frank, because it had to be going on for some time, it couldn't have been sudden. Pochettino was just picked up by PSG. You could look into Mauricio Pochettino as well. So, before he was obviously picked up by PSG, that was just a few weeks prior. So, It doesn't make any. It really doesn't make any sense to me why you get rid of Lampard like that, especially when he's a club legend. It might have been too early for him to take on a job like that. It won't be his last coaching job ever for sure. But I just don't understand why you let him work through the trouble without spending money. But then when he has trouble, when he has spent money, you can him for a guy who really hasn't shown that he can be much more successful when he's at clubs that have even more money than Chelsea, in consideration to the fact that he hasn't had success. He didn't have success to PSG, so it doesn't. It really it's a head scratcher for me, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan, and I'm more or less not a fan because of the fact that they continue to Arsenal holds on to Arteta. If there was any of those managers that were club legends to be fired, Arteta would have been the first guy on my list. And of course, I've already touched on Man United in this one, but I'm going to touch on them again. I was a believer in Ole. Fell off towards the end there, but I still had faith in Ole. Players love to play for him, and what I had noted before is that his tactics just fell behind the fact that players wanted to play for him in big games. I think the fact that Bruno Fernandes has really, really helped him tactically be able to plan around and having such a creative force in that midfield. And as an LFC fan, as a Liverpool FC fan, I can say that he's been, at the very least, just as impactful as a signing as Virgil van Dijk. Hands down. There's no argument that he's been just as impactful as Virgil van Dijk. Now, obviously, Man United were in a different position than Liverpool in before the Van Dijk signing and such. So the positions are different, and that's why the impact's different on comparison to a trophy level. But the impact and subtlety of the impact is hands down, like at that same level as Virgil van Dijk. But like I said, actively rooting for Manchester United to win the league this season. So now to touch on some NBA. Of course, the first thing being that Mark Cuban and the Mavericks will not play the national anthem before any basketball games. Now, I don't want to get political in this podcast. Never have been, never will. But I will just note that I don't think playing sports don't have to be patriotic, and it doesn't matter. So I don't really think it matters. I don't think a sense of nationalism before sporting events really matters to anything, because players come from all different national backgrounds. It just happens to be played in America, and that's where it's broadcast the most. But that's it. Not to mention the fact if people don't like people kneeling, or people like people standing for it, whatever, you take away all platforms. No one can kneel for it. No one has to watch someone kneel for it and feel some type of way. No one has to watch someone stand for it as opposed to kneel for it and feel some type of way. You just take away the platform. Playing basketball doesn't make you any more American than it doesn't. Why does it matter? I don't know. Don't hate me. I'm not trying to be political with that. It's like I don't like politics in my sport, and I don't think that playing it before makes any sport more American than it does or doesn't. People play basketball around the world. Happen to be made here. Makes no difference. Play O Canada. Don't play O Canada. Play the national anthem. Don't. They should play the national anthem for every player on that court if that's the case. And I normally side conservative. But at this point, what impact could it possibly does it have? It doesn't. It has none on the game. Let me watch basketball. That's all I care about. I want to watch basketball. But to now get into the fundamentals, non-political stuff, whatever it may be. If the Celtics exit in the first round this year, if they make it to the first round, but they shouldn't, East, right? They shouldn't. They should have missed the playoffs, right? It's not like I told you they were going to be right in the middle of the pack and not do anything again this year, right? It's not looking like they're going to be a 6 or a 7 seed, right? Oh, they are? Oh, I told you that you can only keep that core together for so long without it making any substantial improvements under, I don't know, Brad Stevens, who should be on the hot seat and most likely will and should be fired if they exit in the first round. Yeah, I said it. Brad Stevens should be fired if they exit in the first round this year, which I do believe they will. Because here's the thing. As good as Jaylen Brown has been this year, who was responsible for the stunting of that growth for the last two? Oh, it was Brad Stevens playing his boy Gordon Hayward and taking away those prime minutes from Jaylen Brown. But look what Jaylen Brown's doing now. Now, that being said, another thing too, he may not have hurt the Kyrie situation any more than it already was, but he certainly didn't help. He certainly didn't help it at all. And he's never gotten more talent out of this core. Has he gotten more out of players that less were respected of? Yes. Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, Marcus Smart throughout this time now. He's gotten a lot out of these players who we don't expect anything from. But when it comes to this core of Tatum, Brown, everybody thinks are walking on water and are both top 20 NBA players. Has he really got more out of them? Jalen he has now, but that's after 2 years of letting him just waste away behind Gordon Hayward and taking away his minutes and taking away his touches for a guy who never showed any signs of consistency in a Celtics uniform ever, especially coming off that injury. Regardless of how he looks now, he couldn't even get Gordon Hayward right. And that's his guy. That's his guy, right? So, and I've just not been able to see any type of consistent rotations. And people are going to be like, oh, look, they beat the Raptors. They've been to the finals. Everybody's going to flip out about this Raptors winning. They're going to go off and they're going to lose 2 of the next 5. They'll go 3 of the next. They'll go 3-2. But they'll continue to hang around 500, maybe a little bit above it. And they'll make it in the playoffs like a 5 or 6 seed. And the legs in the first round. And I think, and there's no point in moving Jalen this year now. But I think you do move Jalen before next season because this is as high as good as he will be, in my personal opinion. But I do think Jalen Brown has a higher ceiling than Tatum, but he'll never get there. I just think because of his athleticism alone, he has a higher ceiling than Jason Tatum. But also, I don't think he will ever get there. So I say you move him now because this is the best you're going to see out of Jalen Brown. And is Ainge innocent in all this either? I don't think so either. He's always been active, but can he swing all these deals when GMs are petrified of being fleeced by him? I don't think so. You know, he's unwilling to take the risk on these other trades because they're not absolute slam dunk deals. Well, not every deal for a GM is a slam dunk deal. The Kyrie Irving trade was a slam dunk deal, and that didn't even work out. You know, so and the Garnett trade was because Mikal helped you out. There's been plenty of slam dunk deals, but he's fleeced the whole Nets trade. He fleeced them and built this entire core off of them. So, you know, I think GMs are petrified of Danny Ainge, and sooner or later he's going to have to swing a deal, or else we're just going to be complacent, and we're going to miss out on this entire core. We're going to miss out on this entire chance to really push the playoffs. We're having a 1A and 1B superstar, and Jason Tatum being the 1B to whoever you can bring in as the 1A. And I would love it to be Bradley Beal. Probably won't be, but I would love it to be Bradley Beal. I think he's top 15 player in the NBA, easy. And I would absolutely take him. I would absolutely move Jalen Brown for him. I don't know if you have to move Jalen Brown for him. You probably do. And I would absolutely do it if you have to. But you might be able to get away with, you know, sneaking Kemba and a couple of other assets in there too to get him. Which would be huge. Absolutely huge. The 2-3-4 combination of him, Jalen, and Tatum. Because, you know, Tatum supposedly grew a couple inches over the offseason as well. And the big thing being, too, is if you can get Jason Tatum at some point to be able to defend the 5, make him do a stretch 5, just run positionless basketball, that'd be great. If you ever teach Jason Tatum to defend the 5 position, this team looks totally different because they don't have a genuine big man that can space the floor. If you somehow get Jason Tatum to be able to defend the 5, at least somewhat well, because it's going to be damn tough for anybody to defend Joel Embiid as it is, the Celtics can legitimately make some moves. But until then, so you swing something for Karl Anthony Towns really to bring him in too as a center, a legitimate big man that can space the floor? I don't see it. But again, I don't think Danny Ainge is innocent in all of this. I don't know who replaces them either. That's the other conversation that is to be had, is that who do you replace Brad Stevens with? Who do you replace Danny Ainge with? Not my job to worry about, man. But I can tell you right now that they're beginning to overstay their welcome. That you need to be able to take a shot sooner rather than later, because you're not going to have these guys here forever, especially with how volatile and how quickly things around the NBA move, because I don't know if Jason Tatum wants to spend his whole career in a Celtics uniform. And that's coming up sooner rather than later. So you got to take your shots now if you think Tatum is as good as he is. Again, I don't think he'll ever be the 1A superstar, but he can be your number 2 for sure. And the time is now to make those moves to grab that number 1. And in all true honesty, Kemba Walker's been handcuffing this team since his surgery. Just has not looked to be that good of a player. He's not even the third option on this team, I don't think, right now. I think you can find anybody else before him as the third option. Pritchard, Marcus Smart, whoever it may be. Kemba is not who you want him to be. Not who you want him to be. How are you going to move him? I don't know. People are going to now take offense to the fact that they're already, you know, how they're already moving on from the free agent they just signed, and the Kyrie Irving situation is not going to be a good look. Listen, you have to try and find a way to move Kemba because he's handcuffing this team right now. Absolutely is.
So to stick with the NBA, Emmanuel Quickly and Derrick Rose being in the same backcourt, it's going to be worth every single penny of my NBA League Pass subscription. And if you can't, and D Rose looks great, but if you can't look at the talent of Emmanuel Quickly and just have your jaw on the floor, then I don't know. He's just a future All-Star. Emmanuel Quickly looks absolutely incredible. Go Knicks. It's finally about time they actually deserve some basketball success. And it looks like Thibodeau actually, which was a questionable signing for me, actually has the boys rocking and rolling in New York. At least some of the young kids. LaMelo Ball, another rookie, also worthy to watch. He's on my fantasy basketball team. He is must-see TV and absolutely worth an NBA League Pass subscription price. People forget Anthony Edwards too, and I kind of hate on that Anthony Edwards coming out of the draft as well too. He's definitely not your rookie of the year or anything, but him, Wiseman has looked good. There's a lot of rookies this year that have looked good, but I'd say that Anthony Edwards has been damn impressive too. But LaMelo Ball has looked really, really good. Now he's starting with Emmanuel Quickly, man. I think if I'm shocked that if anybody, it's Emmanuel Quickly for the New York Knicks. And the NBA has just genuinely been entertaining for me this season. Rolling around, watching whatever games that I can. But, really do following it. I'm really happy that I'm back into the NBA. And I have been genuinely entertained this season by NBA basketball, except the fact that All-Star Weekend, I think, is just blatantly dumb. A lot of players have touched upon the fact that during the middle of the pandemic, a All-Star Weekend, bringing all those players together, seems like a pretty dumb idea. And with the whole Kevin Durant situation where they said he wasn't a close contact, he inconclusive, conclusive, negative, positive. It was an absolute disaster of him being in the game, out of the game, in the game, out of the game. And you want to have an All-Star game, bring all these guys together and have all these competitions. Doesn't really make any sense to me, but especially for a league, the NBA, that listens to the players a lot of the time. Is very pro-player. It is a very confusing thing to me because if the players don't want it, not a big fan of it, then what's the point of having it, Because their enjoyment of what they get out of it in terms of being there. I don't even really think they want to be at All-Star Weekend to begin with, never mind if they really don't want to in a pandemic. Then you just open up Pandora's box there to an absolute disaster of players. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I don't know what we're looking at for All-Star Weekend, but it's not going to look good if you ask me. And the last thing of note to touch on here, maybe I should have touched upon it earlier in the podcast, is the Andrew Benintendi trade, which I like it. I don't hate it. I think it should have been made 2 years ago. I think that Benny hit his ceiling, and of course you would have known that 2 years ago, but you know what now? I think he's absolutely hit his ceiling. I think he's not up to par in terms of his swing speed or where he needs to be, and I don't think he ever will be again. I just don't see him really having any bit of a higher ceiling than he does now. I think he's really stagnated, and that's where he's set to be. You have what you have out of him. And the contracts that are soon to come are going to be based off of the fact of the matter being that people are going to expect him to be able to do more than what he's actually doing. And I am glad the Red Sox got themselves out of that relationship. Especially the fact that I don't mind Frankie Cordero. I don't know if it's Franchi. He's the franchise. That's what I do know. But I do like this Cordero kid. Winchowski, I don't know much about the pitcher. 3 players to be named later, which a lot of times players to be named later, for whatever reason, I think Erod was a player to be named later in the original Andrew Miller trade, just a note 1. But players to be named later, for whatever reason, tend to blow up out of nowhere sometimes, which they should, I guess, because if they're named later, then that's why they blow up, because they were in the original deal. Or they're just contract stuff and play time at a certain level and having me being on a certain team for a certain period of time. I'm sure all that plays into it. I'm pretty sure the teams know who they're giving and who they're getting. It's just a matter of them keeping him there for a certain amount of time to make sure it all works out and clears the MLB offices. But I don't mind the deal. I just think I'm thankful. Don't get me wrong. I'm thankful for what Benny did for us, and I think it was a fun time. But of course, it's the pretty face kid, the guy with the long hair, the young stud. You bring him up, he skips AAA. It's hard to be able to let go of the guy, but I think it was time, and I think it was time to get what you could for him. Now, if they create all this space, because they just signed Marvin Gonzalez, they signed Kike Hernandez, if they create, I like Verdugo a lot, that kid Cordero looks like he's going to be up. If they created all this space just to re-sign Jackie Bradley, I will not watch a single Red Sox game this year if they re-sign Jackie Bradley, take a 4-year deal worth decent money to hit 200 and only save 5 or 6 runs a year in center field. if they're moving all these guys when you could have moved all these guys prior, and kicked Dombrowski at the door faster to re-sign, I don't know, a guy like Mookie Betts. I guess I'd do like Verdugo, but I mean, if you could have moved pieces around right and not given extensions to guys like Chris Sale, you probably could have been able to look at the wallet and sign Mookie Betts. But we were very fortunate that they were able to blow it up and stay under the luxury tax before a goddamn pandemic hit. So I'd have to say that that's pretty spectacular in the sense that we got that lucky. But I think the time was right for Andrew Benintendi, and I'm looking forward to what our young outfit looks like with Duran, Frenchie Cordero. But if they moved all this around just to bring in Jackie Bradley for 4+ years, on my life, Scout's honor here, I will not watch a single Red Sox game this season. I am genuinely excited for baseball and really want to watch the Red Sox. We're going to watch all these teams. Because I have ESPN Plus, so MLB TV is going to be mine as well. But if they do all this to sign, and if Bradley signs for 1 year on a cheap deal or a decent deal, I can live with that. But if we're signing this guy for 4 or 5 years on a decent money deal, I'm done. I'm not watching the Red Sox game this entire season, and we will reevaluate that decision at the end of this one. But if that is to happen, I will lose my damn mind, and I will not watch a single Red Sox game this year. Will not do it. Let the kids get some reps if you're still willing to reset this thing, especially this kid Duran, who looks like an absolute stud. I haven't been as pro young guy as I have in the past, but right now with this Duran kid, I absolutely am. Or this Cordero kid. Look at the video of him hitting the home run for the Padres. Good God. So, I think it was the right move. For the love of God, it's the right move if you don't move around this space to bring in Jackie Bradley. Jesus Christ, please don't do that. I will refuse to watch a baseball game this season. But I am genuinely excited for spring training reporting and to see this season get going because last year baseball was just kind of weird. Everything was just kind of weird for me. Still a little upset with the Players Association and not having the neutral DH this year. But I love baseball with all of my heart. It's hands down my favorite sport. So I will be tuned in. I will be tuned in more than ever this season and hopefully be doing a lot of live streaming of games late at night and such like that as well. And of course, we're bringing back Zach Souza for that as well because Zach's a goddamn man, especially when it comes to baseball. But dude, so all of that will be coming in the future. Got some guests lined up for the show as well. Like I said, this will be the last week of just the one episode. So we'll have everything like that all set. Of course, brought to you by Vin's Organics, natural herbal pain solve. Takes the pain away, takes the bruises away, and it beats out every single price of any CBD you've ever used or even thought of using. Vin'sOrganics.com. Tell them that Rufus sent you. Also, Ethan Souza Design. Let's get creative. Head on over to Ethan Souza to get your design work done. Plenty of happy customers. You even talk to the Breakfast of Champion guys, see how well Ethan did for them with their first logos to their logos now. And you can also see his hat right back there. Or no, so I'm going to point this way. That hat, boom, right there. Ethan Souza Design. Go check him out. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. I appreciate it. Let me know what you want to see for future episodes, adjustments, whatever may change. Of course, I want to be streaming more as well. Might even be streaming, well, it'll be tonight at the time of recording. But you might be able to tune into my stream the night after. I might be streaming on the Friday night, so we'll see. So yeah, let's say I'm streaming tonight. So I don't think I'm doing anything on Friday anyway. So streaming tonight, because the recording of this is later tonight. You get what I'm saying. It's your boy Rufus, signing off.